Am I the asshole for socially denying a woman a seat next to me on the bus? I ride a pretty sparsely ridden bus from my work to my college.
When I say sparse, I mean it's never even close to half full.
There are always rows of empty seats at the time that I ride it in the afternoon. I use a light linen bag for work and I don't want to put it on the floor or on my lap, so I put it on the seat next to me. All the seats are pairs, 2 seats next to each other. I don't mind anyone sitting next to me, but the bus is never close to full, so I use the space for my bag. Yesterday during my commute, a lady got on the bus and grimaced at me. She gestured for me to remove my bag so she could sit next to me.
As usual, there were so many empty seats.
I wasn't sitting in a disabled, reserved area. There were seats closer to the door. But whatever, I'm not confrontational. I removed my bag so she could sit.
I sort of rolled my eyes when she sat down next to me and sighed, not to be obvious, but just because I got off an 8-hour shift, I was tired and wanted my own space, and she didn't have to sit next to me.
She clearly noticed. She then said, "You need to learn some manners."
After that I got up and moved to another seat, but the whole thing has been bothering me for a day.
Did I really lack manners? It just feels like she sat there to teach me a lesson when she could have sat anywhere else. Not the asshole.
Bag in seat, no intention on moving it, empty seats all over the bus equals find your ass somewhere else to sit and leave other people alone.
Op. It sounds like you might have an occasionally anxious mindset. Rest assured that you did nothing wrong, hun.
It was very inconsiderate for that lady to intentionally invade your personal space and demand she sit next to you. Yes, this is a public space and setting, so most of the time there isn't enough space to be left personally to yourself.
The only one lacking manners and common courtesy was her and not you. Not the asshole. This has happened to me too. These people are just on a power trip. I just get up and move to another empty seat.
If I get on any kind of transport and there are empty seats everywhere, I don't go and sit directly next to someone. It's weird. This happened to me the other day. I was on the left of a 3-seat bench. Bag on middle.
Empty right.
Some crazy guy tried getting the one right next to me.
I said, "There's an empty right there." I got lectured and called names. Obvious. Not the asshole. I look at it as what I call the urinal philosophy. You don't go right next to someone else if you have a ton of urinals open. Not the asshole. She's just being a jerk.
The eye rolling might have been a bit dramatic, but I feel you.
I think I would have gotten up and moved or just made up some lie. Something that would have made her uncomfortable for sitting next to me, but not something that would have gotten me kicked off the bus. Or maybe something unhinged. Like, "Sorry, my sister was sitting there, she just went to the bathroom." And then when she goes, "What are you talking about? There's no bathroom on this bus." I gesture to the back and go, "Actually, ma'am, it's right there. Don't worry, a lot of folks miss it." "Oh, looks like there's a line today. Well, looks like you'll get to sit here for a bit longer. I'm sure Betty Sue won't mind." And then just smile and wave at invisible ghost Betty Sue.
Anyone saying anything but not the asshole is showing they are either too privileged or too young to know how buses work.
There are unspoken rules. You don't creep on people until you have to. Not the asshole.
What is it with people insisting on sitting so close to someone when there's perfectly fine seats elsewhere, especially in a mostly empty space?
So unnecessary. Am I the asshole for not letting my kids ride 4 hours home with their grandmother?
Around 1 a.m. there was a terrible crash as my 70 female mother-in-law decided to try to navigate our stairs in the dark while wearing a CPAP. She tumbled down the steps, hitting her head bad enough to bruise her face and cause some serious swelling around her ear. I immediately started calling 911, but my wife, who is a NICURN, told me not to call as her mother had no obviously broken bones and didn't want to go. I'm not a medical professional and it's seldom wise to argue with a nurse or one's wife, but I pressed for them to at least let me drive her to the ER if they refused an ambulance, but all to no avail. This was just a couple of hours ago and she's now in the bed with an ice pack and a couple of Tylenol to avoid blood thinners. In the morning she wants to drive home and take my 9F daughter and 13 male son to her place for the week. This has been planned for weeks and I would have no issues with it but for the fact that the woman just fell down a flight of stairs and could have a concussion. I love her and don't want her to drive at all and asked her to stay a couple of extra days, but if she insists on going I can't stop her. I told my wife I was uncomfortable with the kids riding with her given the danger, and she thinks I'm being silly, which I don't understand at all as she's a very competent nurse.
I finally told her that everyone could be mad at me, but it simply wasn't an option.
I'll take the day off and drive them if I must, but I won't take any chances.
Am I the asshole? Update. Well, my mother-in-law was alive and conscious when we woke this morning. My wife stayed up to watch over her through the night. I spoke to my wife this morning and again shared my concerns regarding the dangers my mother-in-law would be posing to herself and our kids, and my wife was frustrated that I questioned her opinion, but when I asked if she was so utterly certain in her diagnosis sans any medical equipment that she was willing to bet both her mother and our children's lives on it, she sheepishly relented and agreed the kids would stay home and that she would encourage her mom to go to the ER. I spoke to my mother-in-law again and asked her to let me take her to the ER, and she shared that her primary reason for refusing medical care was a fear of the cost of doing so.
Unfortunately, that's a serious concern of many folks here in the US.
Anyways, hearing that,
I firmly insisted she go and told her we'd cover any costs.
She and my wife finally went to the ER, and after several hours and copious tests, it was in fact determined that she had a concussion as well as rib and wrist fractures and soft tissue injuries, bruising.
My wife was pretty devastated with the diagnosis and was deeply apologetic and remorseful.
My mother-in-law will be in the hospital until at least tomorrow.
The hospitalist pretty directly chided both my wife and Mill.
All in all, I'm thankful that things didn't end up worse. The kids only cared about their grandma being okay. Some answers to questions asked. 1. My mother-in-law is a retired school teacher on a very limited fixed income along with my Phil. There's no inheritance or other reason my wife would have wished her ill. They have a great relationship.
My wife sprang out of bed the moment the accident happened and was almost detached and clinical at the moment, but was later extremely emotional. Her father had a major stroke last year, and we actually just sold our house Friday in order to move closer to her parents to help take care of them in their old age.
2.
While my wife has been an NICU nurse for a decade, she was a step-down ICU nurse for 8 years.
I realize that doesn't strengthen her case regarding her decision, but perhaps it adds context.
She really is remarkable with babies and has saved many a life, but I can certainly understand why the circumstances of these events would paint her in a less than beneficial light.
3. In retrospect, I think my wife was in a state of shock. She's never lost anyone, and her dad's stroke is still fresh on her mind. I've lost both parents and 4 siblings plus plenty of friends my time in the service, so I have to look at her through a lens of empathy. I'm a nurse and I'm frankly appalled at your wife's decision to not take her mother to the ER.
A 70-year-old who suffers a fall and sustains head injuries should absolutely be checked out in the ER, whether or not your wife, your mother, or the Easter Bunny believe it isn't necessary. If she absolutely refuses to go, tell her that your children will not be staying with her at her house, as you do not think it is safe.
She could be suffering from a concussion or an intracranial bleed. Not the asshole, and your wife is being blindly irresponsible just because it's her mom. I would drive them yourself and make sure your children fully know how to contact you in an emergency should anything happen to mother-in-law whilst they're there.
Not the asshole, I mean. Do we forget Bob Saget so soon? He hit his head, went back to bed, and didn't wake up in the morning.
I'd 100% tell her your children's visit is contingent on going to get checked out before she drives home.
Safer for her, safer for your children, safer for everyone else on the road during her 4 hours drive.
Not the asshole. A concussion is the least of your MIL's worries.
A subdural hematoma is more worrisome and likely.
I'm an adult trauma surgeon. I've rotated through NICU and pediatric surgery. I still have no business treating children.
Your wife has no useful experience with care of the elderly.
Bruising by the ear can be from a skull fracture, called bottle sign. She meets the criteria for a CT head and C-spine for age and mechanism, plus more depending on what the assessing emergency physician deems necessary. Don't let your children stay alone with your wife or your mother-in-law at this point.
Your wife is an AH.
Not the asshole.
Holy hell, I can't believe your wife didn't have her mom checked out at the ER for a concussion and then just sending her mom back to bed.
Not the asshole.
Better safe than sorry. Not to say your wife isn't a capable nurse, but when was the last time she had a concussed patient? Does she know what to look for?
I'm surprised she's willing to gamble with her mother's and children's health, lives. Am I the asshole for telling my wife I didn't enjoy the birthday surprise she planned for me?
My 36M wife, 37F, said she would plan something for my birthday.
She asked if there was anything I wanted to do, and I told her no. At 36, I don't have any expectations for my birthday. We've been together for 10 years, married for 7. We have 3 kids under 6, so planning activities can be tricky. Traveling is tough and staying in uncomfortable places with kids is stressful. So my wife plans something, packs an overnight suitcase for everyone, and loads up our van. We drive 1H45 mail to a small town, then take a long, rocky, narrow road to a tiny cabin Airbnb in a remote, heavily wooded area. It's a single room with a galley kitchen, 1 bed, and a pull-out couch. It's cramped with 3 kids.
There's not much to do, no walking trails, and nowhere to drive except back on that awful road.
I'm asked to drive back to get dinner from a nearby bar. I'm surprised, and not in a good way.
I don't say anything bad about the property, but I can't hide my feelings and she can tell I'm not a fan.
We unpack, walk around. She has some gifts for me to open in front of the kids. We have cake and then spend 4 or 5 hours trying to pass the time. The highlight is sneaking in a quickie in the outdoor bathtub. After that, we go through the tiresome routine of getting all 3 kids to sleep, which is extra hard in a tiny cabin. BTWI sleep on an air mattress because our youngest co-sleeps and needs mom at night. We wake up early because the cabin has no curtains.
My wife tells me we're going to do a 5K bubble and color run. I smile and say, "Ook, let's do it," not wanting to sound disappointed but probably failing to hide it. I'm not a runner, I've never said I wanted to run, but whatever, let's try it. We pack up and head to the event. It's a small, cheap event on a hot day. Our 2 youngest don't want to do this, but we start the race anyway.
Our oldest takes off, causing us to lose him twice. I frantically try to catch up, ending up sweaty, winded, and with aching knees. Not fun. After my wife finishes with our other 2 kids, we walk around a small street fair and let the kids play. It's fine, but I'm ready to rest. My wife tells me we're supposed to meet friends at the beach later, so we have a 2-hour drive back, hoping the kids nap in the car. I take a nap, feeling quiet and not in a good mood. We get to the beach and 2 of our kids start melting down.
I'm done with the day and would prefer to be home. Eventually they chill, we find some shade and it's fine. When we get home, it's a mad dash to get the kids showered and in bed, while I unpack, clean the car and house. My wife asks what's wrong, and I tell her I appreciate her effort, but it didn't feel like she planned it with me in mind.
I don't like running, I want comfort when traveling with the kids, and it was exhausting. It was a lot of effort for something not enjoyable. She flips out, devastated that I didn't enjoy it and angry at me for not just being grateful somebody planned something for me. Not the asshole. I mean, it is nice that your wife planned this surprise birthday trip for you, but at the same time, some situational awareness on her end would have been nice. After being together for 10 years, she should know what you probably are or are not going to enjoy. She shouldn't flip out that you didn't like the trip. I mean, that's the risk she takes when she doesn't consult with you or include you in any of the planning. At least you were being honest with her. I'd re-emphasize to her that you do appreciate the thought, but you would prefer to be consulted or included in the planning next time. Or better yet, ask you what you want to do first, if anything. As another non-runner, not the asshole. I would be dumbfounded if my husband organized for us to go for a family 5K run for my birthday, no matter how colorful or bubbly it was. Not the asshole. The ultimate question is, what did she plan for you? Because after 7 years, if she knows so little about you that she couldn't envision you wouldn't enjoy it, that says something about her. Not the asshole. Don't fall for this bullshit. She planned this for herself, not for you. She got a bed, you slept on an air mattress. She got to finish the run, while you were childcare for the straying kid. She made you do all the work, drive around to get the food. This was for her, and you were the support person for her fun. Why would this trip be remotely fun? No trails, nowhere to drive, fussy small kids, and a tight deadline back to the beach. Why not just hang out at the beach with the kids? Not the asshole.
None of that sounds like a birthday celebration.
I have no idea what your wife was thinking of when she planned it, but as you said, I don't think she was thinking of you. Am I the asshole for not babysitting my ex's children? I share a 12-year-old son with my ex. We broke up amicably when he was 3 months old. We got along fine just after. We were both young and never really worked together, and I have zero animosity toward her for the end of our relationship. We co-parented our son well over most of the last 12 years, but for 3/4 of a year now we've had some issues. Following our breakup, my ex has had 5 other children by 5 different men, and to the best of my knowledge not one of the men is involved in the life of their child. My ex is raising her other 5 kids alone without help, and as of 2 years ago she lives in a different city and I have custody of our son, with her getting monthly visitation and more time in the summer. I used to see my ex's kids occasionally and I'd try to be kind to them. But the more kids she had, the more she would ask for me to help with them, and I put a boundary down because I did not want to encourage her to keep having more children and to rely on me for financial or childcare assistance. It started with her wanting money for her kids' birthdays or a medical appointment and turned into requests for me to take kids overnight or for me to babysit for her. She was made homeless 2 years ago after her former landlord sold the house she was renting and the new owner did not intend to continue renting it out. She left it too late to make other plans, and when she was made homeless I was awarded temporary custody of our son, which turned to full custody once she moved to a different city. Now my ex is asking me to babysit her kids during the day now that school's out, and I told her no. My reasons are as follows. It's a 3-hour drive from her to me, and I don't believe she's going to make that drive to and from here every day to pick up the kids, which means I would end up with her kids overnight. She also expects this for free, which is another reason. And finally, she is pregnant again, so doing this now only adds to the concern about her leaning on me to be a father to the kids she had with other men. When I said no, we had a fight over this, and she told me to think of it as showing my son how to be a kind and caring person and giving her kids the chance to see him more than they do. She told me I need to man up and help her as the father of her first kid. And she laid a huge guilt trip on me, which I think has made me question my no now. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Her inability to use birth control isn't your fucking problem. While it would be nice for your child to see their siblings, it's not your responsibility to care for children you had no hand in conceiving. Keep that line in the sand or you'll become more and more liable to kids that aren't yours. Not the asshole. No one wants to watch that many kids. Period. 1. Your job is to show your child stability. 2. You teach your kid kindness and caring by showing him how to be on a daily basis, not by babysitting. 3. There is no way you should spread your resources and time so thin that your child is lost in the mix. 4. Your ex needs to be responsible for her decisions and kids. 5. Any burden you take on will negatively affect your kid. Judging from her decisions, she is not the pillar of morality whose opinions should matter to you. She is damaging her kids yet still having more. Protect your child. She needs to women up and not have kids with deadbeat dads. Not the asshole. You're not responsible for your ex's children with other men. Your primary responsibility is to your son, and you've been doing that well. Your ex's choices have created a challenging situation, but it's not your job to fix it. Babysitting her kids, especially given the distance in her history, is unreasonable. Setting boundaries is important to protect your own well-being and your ability to care for your son. You've been kind and supportive, but it's okay to say no to unreasonable demands. Not the asshole. Just say no. You're also showing your son how not to be a pushover. Your ex has put herself in her current predicament, and she needs to find her own way. Not the asshole. I would strongly encourage you to open lines of communication with your son about his mother and half-siblings. Once your ex accepts you won't be manipulated into caring for her 6 other children, she'll start working on your son. Children love their parents regardless of how little said parents deserves that love. Important to make sure your son isn't experiencing parentification during his visits with his mom. Further, keep close eye on your son's finances because his mother will try to guilt him into taking care of his siblings.